you.
We are proud to have amongst us our guest of honor, Dr. Mamta Agarwal ma'am, Additional Secretary, Association of Indian Universities and former Joint Secretary, UGC. With an experience of more than 20 years in academic administration in both formulating and implementing policies, she has a great understanding of higher education system, functioning of regulatory bodies, universities, colleges, open and distance learning system. Primarily an Indian Air Force officer, she is a great multitasker and keeps a balanced approach even in strenuous circumstances.
She was nominated by President of India for being on Board of Governors of National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research and has been resource person on varied subjects such as higher education policy, national education policy, gender inclusion, etc. at National Institute of Technical Teachers Training and Research. I request ma'am to kindly come and address the gathering.
Radhika, before ma'am starts, I just wish to convey to all the members present here that I am more influenced and impressed by her down-to-earth approach and very humble persona. Yesterday, I tried her calling a number of times. In fact, Vice Chancellor ma'am was also very worried that why her call is not being made, and she called me back, and by her opening statement only, I was totally floored. Mamta ji, thank you so very much. We are honored that you have accepted our request. Thank you so very much for being there, ma'am.
Oh, am I audible?
You are, ma'am. You are, ma'am.
Okay. A very, very good morning to all of you, all the distinguished panelists here. Firstly, I do not know if I deserve all the kind words and your generosity which you have been speaking on, but my heartiest gratitude for all the good words for me. What I want to say is that you will have to bear with me that I am badly, badly down with a sore thought. But let me share whatever thoughts I have. I think all the speakers who have spoken here, they are specialists and have a niche area of technical expertise. However, I would be speaking more from a generistic approach and focusing on higher education segment, or if I may say education segment. So the chief guest of the inaugural session, Sri Abhishek Singh, President and CEO, National E-Governance Division. Mr. Kairav Modi, Executive Vice President and CFO, Digital Industries, Siemens Limited. My most lovely lady, Professor Balvinder Shukla, Vice Chancellor of MET University. Bansalji and his co-brother, and in fact both the brothers, Sanjeev Bansalji and Sodhiji. One being Dean FMS, Director MET Business School, and Chairperson of Infinity 2020. Dr. Sodhi, who is Group CIO and Senior Vice President MET. Lovely Dr. Tina Bhaga, who spoke to me and invited me along with Professor Bansal's very affectionate and warm request for joining. Professor and convener of the conference. Distinguished friends from academia, eminent members of Amity family, various stakeholders of higher education, overseas delegates, and dear participants. It is indeed my privilege to share my thoughts on one of the most relevant, extant topic of today, digitally transformed world, new challenges and strategies. It is a Herculean task to hold on to your attention and receptivity in an absolute virtual mode where you are non-stop listening without any body language perception or even an eye contact. However, I must try to do my bit in all my endeavors. In 1998, a little more than 2 decades back, Peter Drucker, an Austrian-American management consultant, an educator and an author, made a statement that 30 years from now, big university campuses will be relic. Universities won't survive. He actually meant brick and mortar universities. It is as large a challenge, as large a change as when we first got the printed book. But it has yet not happened, and it's more than 2 decades. So in my very, very personal opinion, technology is a wonderful tool. It is a powerful tool. But technology in the hands of a good teacher, in the hands of a great teacher, is transformational. So no technology can ever replace great teachers, or for that matter, our Sanskritic Guru Sishya Parampara. But with this statement, we all must admit that with the progression of disruptive technological advancements and COVID pandemic, there is a paradigm shift. There is a paradigm shift in teaching learning processes. There is a paradigm shift in how education, and more so higher education, has been. It has changed to collaborative, cross-institutional, cross-cultural, bi-directional, or if I may say multi-directional, enabling beautiful convergence of man and machine to explore new pedagogies. And in this process, in this whole process, it is no longer a unidirectional flow of information from students to teachers. Rather, students have become creators of knowledge, equal partners in a self-paced, self-directed, and interest-based learning ecosystem. Video conferencing, Skype, wikis, blogs, virtual classrooms, simulators, MOOCs, animated laboratories, personalized data from this interconnected world, and so on, so forth, being some of the digital learning techniques. So one basic question which comes to my mind is, what did COVID do other than creating health, social, and economic disruptions? So before we answer this question, let us look at the slide. So may I request for my first slide? May I request for my first slide? Tina ji, if you can display my first slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am.
I request admin to please give me the sharing rights.
Ma'am, already given.
So this first slide shows that what happens in internet in a minute. So I would leave you for a few seconds just to see. And it is in 2019, probably post-COVID, in last 6 months, it would have multiplied by number and number of times. Like for example, in 60 seconds, Google had been facing 3.8 million searches or queries on varied subjects. So probably it would have gone to more than 6 million, or for that matter, number of hours Netflix being watched or YouTube. So it is for the consumption of everyone. How does a minute, precisely 60 seconds on internet are spent on? Next slide, please. Tina ji, next slide, please.
Yes, ma'am.
It is one of the data which I have taken from infographics and internet usage, that how people have been accessing and have been glued to internet and what level of penetration internet has on all of us. It also shows geographical area wise, continent wise, Asia, Europe, Africa, Latin America, how has been the reach and how much time various other radio, TV, internet, how many years they took to reach 50 millions. Next slide, please. This is a very, very important statement in my point of view. And one, I would read it out to you. We asked customers what their biggest barrier was to driving digital transformations, and they said it is culture. Here, I would replace the word customers to anyone who is interested in a digital transformation or who is trying to adopt a digital technology. So probably here culture applies to our thought processes, attitudinal leanings, psychological comforts, situational reactions, and so on and so forth. So what did COVID-19 change? Our first speaker, Abhishek ji, spoke about various tools, Arogya Setu, government's initiatives, and subsequently Kairav ji from Siemens talk about various business models which are available, the technological invasions in these business models, integration of technology and making them more effective. But for everything, whatever two of my predecessors spoke on, it needs a change in the mindset. It needs a change in understanding that technology is here to stay, and it needs an effective integration for better output. It needs that we accept it in our psychological comfort zones. We change our thought process, our technological adaptations, our adaptations, our ways of doing things, addressing the issues and concerns. And COVID-19 has precisely done that. It has actually accelerated the digital transformation of every field and equally or in equal measures of education. So the pandemic changed quite a bit, almost everything. This historical event brought teaching, research, and working in universities, brick and mortar universities, to a standstill and imposed different ways of addressing their concerns, acclimatize, adapt, and bring in relevant changes. Forced by the sudden shuttering of these brick and mortar campuses, universities had no option but to explore possibilities, integrating technology to ensure continuity of teaching learning processes and conduct classes online. We can now see that COVID-19 has redirected and amplified the concerns and actions of universities across the world, across the globe, reshaping and challenging their interest into promising short-term operational continuity while ensuring long-term institutional viability. Very few people probably may have or would have predicted that universities would face such a paradigm shift with predominant virtual teaching and remote working busting onto the scenes. It is a consequence of this global pandemic. Perhaps none of us might have been thought or envisaged that the evolution of the digital world or a new technological breakthrough or even a radical shift in education demands the edtech phenomena, if I may call it, would have been in normal circumstances a gradual incremental change than the monumental change that we all are witnessing. Trust me, it is not the virus. Trust me, it is not the virus, but the imposition based amended thought process. I shall repeat, but the imposition based amended thought process, which is making all the change and making this edtech phenomena a much faster, a much monumental thought process change rather than a gradual incremental change. So what it includes acceptance of extant situation, what is happening around us, looking for varied solutions, understanding that technology is the tool, understanding that technology will remain, will improve, will make things better, and finally embracing it in creating novice teaching learning experiences and finding solutions to all our academic processes. So what has been the government of India's role during this pandemic time? One of the things which happened very effectively is that after 34 years, a very progressive, cutting edge educational, education based, student centric, participative national education policy was unveiled in the month of July. This national education policy has recognized that technology in education is a journey and not a destination, and capacity will be needed to orchestrate various ecosystem players to implement laid down policy objectives and effective teaching learning processes. Establishment of National Education Technological Forum, which is a part of new education policy, indicates Government of India's commitment to provide end-to-end support on EdTech implementation. That is, digital content development, suitable digital platform on which it can be hosted, digital delivery of the content, digital teaching learning process, and digital learning assessment. After doing everything in a digital mode, we need to assess as to what level of teaching learning actually taking place. what level of achievement our learners are achieving by these digital teaching learning processes. So a dedicated unit for this purpose, orchestrating building of digital infrastructure, digital content, capacity building, it will be created in the Ministry of Education and probably in overarching umbrella of higher education, that is Higher Education Commission of India. It will look after e-education needs of both sectors, that is a school as well as a higher education sector. Since technology is rapidly changing, it's evolving with every passing day, and it needs specialists to deliver high quality e-learning. NEP endeavors, National Education Policy endeavors, and mandates a vibrant and encouraging ecosystem to create solutions that not only solve India's challenges of scale, diversity, equity, vastness, difficult terrain, but also evolve in keeping with the rapid changes in technology, whose half-life reduces with each passing year. Therefore, experts from the field of administration, education, educational technology, digital pedagogy, educational governance, academic governance, assessment, all of them will be drawn to form a group of experts. My slide on SWAYAM, please. SWAYAM, I am sure all of you are aware of. It is a program, it is an initiative by Government of India, which is based on sustainable development goals, which have been defined by the United Nations. And what are these cardinal principles of education and sustainable development goals? Access, equity, and quality. UN goes a step further. It also says inclusive and affordable. So all these sustainable goals, our education embedded in the technology has made it possible that we are able to achieve all these defined sustainable goals of the United Nations, as well as the cardinal principles of the education policy, which are access, equity, and quality. So what I am sure most of you and many of you are aware of, that this program SWAYAM, it seeks to bridge the digital divide for students who have hitherto remained untouched by this digital revolution. As Professor Shukla was also saying, that student based out of difficulty range, some of them even in Jammu and Kashmir, have not been able to join the mainstream of knowledge digital economy. So SWAYAM has been one of the platforms and endeavors by the Government of India. So it is a platform that facilitates hosting of all courses, it from class 9 till post-graduation mode. These can be accessed by any time. These are interactive courses and prepared by the best faculty members. In fact, another boon which digital transformation has built in our system is that students can be taught by any faculty sitting anywhere in the world, coming from Caltech or say Cornell or any Ivy League, Stanford, Harvard, MIT, and being accessed probably by a student sitting in Balia or Champaran or anywhere in the world. So this is the power, this is the reach of digital technology. So these are specially designed courses and specially chosen faculty, distinguished faculty in their field. They are the one who develop these courses. SWAYAM has 4 quadrants. I'm sure all of you are aware of. Video lectures, specially prepared reading materials. Reading material can either be downloaded or printed. Self-assessment test. Various modes are used. There are quizzes, tests, online discussion forums. And then there is also the hand holding by the instructor. There is a hand holding by the faculty. And all the times these courses are updated, they are enriched. State of the art pedagogy by using the technology is used so that the teaching learning process becomes as effective as possible, or maybe as effective as human to human interact in a brick mortar university mode. These are free of cost to the learners. In case students want a certificate or they want that they need to be certified for an attended and a passed course, they can also apply, and there are final proctored examinations at the end, and that comes with a fee. These examinations can be generally taken in the designated centers on specified dates. Now government is also endeavoring to make it absolutely online, that the students can do so sitting at home and proctored by the technology itself. Another thing you are already aware of, massive open online courses. Anyone can enroll. These are affordable, flexible. I won't spend much time on this. These can update your skills, advance your careers, can upgrade your knowledge on any subject you want to take it, and deliver quality educational experience at scale. And this scale has been provided by this technological platform. So millions of people around the world have used MOOCs to learn for varied reasons. It can be change of career, preparations for anything, supplemental learnings, lifelong learnings, corporate e-learnings, trainings, and so on and so forth. So if I may say, and as the MOOCs website says, that we have dramatically changed the way the world learns, the way we learn. So ready to get started. So, but probably this is what COVID-19 has done. It has asked us the question, are you ready to get started in a digital mode? Are you ready for a digital transformation? And we did, and we were resilient, and we replied, and we transformed, and we are learning digitally today. There are other initiatives. There are state initiatives like ePathshala. It is helping to familiarize or the marginalized communities with e-learning, providing online resources for educators, children, the parents, all of them. Government has recently launched PM eVidya program to broaden multimode access to digital education. The sudden disruptions caused by the pandemic, and probably more than 32 crore school children, I'm talking of school children, are out of school or not being able to attend to schools because of COVID pandemic. So just to ensure their learning during this difficult time. So long-term digitalization efforts by the government, and these have further been supplemented with initiative designed for immediate recovery of the education sector. It would be more applicable to the school sector as well. I'm sure all of you have heard of Swayam Prabha. Swayam Prabha is a group of 34 DTH channels devoted to telecasting high quality educational content programs, and it is on 24/7 basis. It is using GSAT-15 satellite, and every day the content, new content for 4 hours is uploaded, and it is repeated 5 times a day so that students can have self-paced, self-directed, self-interest based learning. The challenges are up, all these channels are uplinked from Gandhinagar. Contents are provided by the experts, NPTEL, IITs, UGC, IGNOU, NCERT, NIOS, and InflibNet Center at Gandhinagar is maintaining and is responsible for the web portal of Swayam Prabha. We may say that why do we require Swayam Prabha, or why do we even require these DTH channels? But a country like India, we need to understand the digital divide, which I would come a little later in my talk. So amidst this pandemic, our government has brought in many reforms. Many of those reforms need not necessarily be in the field of education, and many have been covered by Abhishek ji. But then government's focus has been through National Education Policy's announcement that subjects like coding, vocational courses, experiential learning must be introduced and offered at school level itself, and at a much younger level. Probably we may even start off with a much younger age to integrate it with ever changing technological advancements in the field. So by the time you come to undergrad, or by the time you come to grad, you are already have had enough exposure and integration of the required understanding of the subject which you need to take it further to. So many edutech startups have also started in this field to make the process of digital teaching learning, digital assessment, digital content development much faster. But then online teaching learning or online education process, or ODL for that matter, ODL is separate from the current scenario of online education. It offers multiple challenges. One of the most serious challenges, regulating online education. Till now, in India as a country, we have been adopted to or have been thought of a brick and mortar university, a human to human inspecting teams, laid down a regulatory process for classroom teachings, laid down assessment tools which were physical in nature and not really digital in nature. So when we change, and when we change so rapidly, and when the change was made so rapidly by the COVID pandemic, so we need that with the advent of technology and easy access to internet, online mode, online teaching learning processes, a very well laid out regulatory online education processes, and which we say light but tight, which is a terminology used in the new education policy. We need to bring in certain reformatory, serious regulatory changes, which will facilitate, which will encourage, which will enable the use of technology in a much more effective manner, however, in a manner that effective, proper teaching learning is ensured and teachers are trained. Because one of the next challenge which I would come to is that how our teachers need to have, our faculty members need to have a change in mindset, need to have continuous updated technological skills to upgrade themselves and keep at par with the ever changing technological advancements. Addressing the digital divide. COVID has brought on to the forefront of a large digital divide which our vast country has. Inequalities between those students with the resources and technological means at their disposal and those without accesses to these facilities, these devices. So digital haves and digital have-nots. So according to a UNESCO report, when which I was talking about, that more than 32 crores children in India are affected by the closures of schools and colleges. Students belonging to marginalized sections of the society and residing in difficult terrain are at a much greater loss. Some of the major issues regarding online classes, both for students and teachers, are access to the internet, lack of proper devices, smartphones, computers, electricity. A survey which was done by Ministry of Rural Development in 1718 said that it's almost 33% or a little more than that. India's household received 9 to 12 hours of electricity daily. So when we talk about everything online, everything transformational, everything digital, we need to understand and we need to very carefully take into account the digital divides of digital haves and digital have-nots in India. So another shortcoming is internet facility, which, some of us can't even think of, not having a Wi-Fi or not having a 24/7 data. But there are households, it's only roughly or approximately 24% of Indian households which have good approachable internet connectivity or internet facility as per the National Statistical Official Report. So what do we need? So when we talk about this digital transformation, we need this access, we need these devices, and we need to plug in a gap between have-nots and haves. And probably we need to develop something which consumes much less bandwidth, probably something which can be by simple transmission, maybe radio. So everything only thinking about that has to be digital probably may not work out for a country as large as India. Smartphones can be used for watching videos, for attending some of the online classes. But when it comes to writing lengthy assignments, attempting assessment papers, some of the lengthier assessment papers, it's almost not feasible. I was talking to one of the teachers, something uh, I think I may have not informed, but I was Director Education Delhi for about 6 years. And I was talking to those teachers, and then they were saying that their students are not able to attend online classes. And when I asked why are they not able to attend, they said the whole house has one phone. And even if we assume that it is a smartphone, either the mother is taking when she is going for household works, working in others' house, or the father is taking when he is traveling for the purposes of earning his livelihood, when he is going for his job. So the student is not left with a device which he can effectively use. Probably with the entry of Geo 2017, internet connectivity is reaching out to places where earlier electricity wasn't available. I am hopeful, and I am sure so each one of you is, that we are able to bridge in this gap to ensure a much wider access, a much wider access. Again, we need specialists even for developing the content, which is easily understandable, which is comprehensible, and which students can actually access at an affordable rate. So, there are EdTech sector, there are people, Byju's, Upgrade, Simply Learn, they can bridge this digital divide. They can come up with some of the best solutions. So maybe government may have to go for public private partnership in these areas. And with the growing internet and smartphone penetration rates in India, I think coincided with this pandemic, it has created a higher demand for e-learning. And I feel MET as a university, and one of the best ones, must take it as a challenge, as a part of their corporate social responsibility, to ensure that what can they do, what can the university do to kind of fill in the gap between this digital divide, and how can they create, and how can they partner with the government, with the civic bodies, to make and to ensure that the access becomes a much better. Now another thing is, I have already covered, but then these were the challenges. Now what are the opportunities when we talk about digital things? I had already covered that a child in Balia or Champaran or Sundargarh or Northeast has equal access to online courses being offered by the best in the world, whether it is Harvard, Oxford, MIT, Caltech. So COVID has accelerated and trying to bridging this terrain gap, this socio-economic disadvantageous gap. And we all have to endeavor, we all have been endeavoring to achieve equity, being one of the fundamental pillars of our democracy. Now, continuous learning of teachers in new disruptive technology is a major challenge. Faculty members who are not accustomed to e-learning platforms, and sometimes maybe in who are not the millennia, or who are not that young in life and have been accustomed to teaching in a brick and mortar and a human to human interact mode, needs to change, and needs to change very rapidly, which is challenging and at times can be disturbing for them. So what we need to do for that, we need to create a sense of belongingness to technology for their easier and better adaptation. Like, for example, all teachers whose children, maybe even if they are in 60s or 65, some of them, if their children are abroad, they very quickly learn with a fraction of a second how to make a video WhatsApp call, and maybe send those video messages on WhatsApp to their children. So why do they do it so quickly, and how do they do it so quickly? Because there they have a purpose, there they have a sense of purpose, they have a sense of belongingness. So what is important is that we continuously upgrade, change the skills, and before the knowledge, we change their mindset. We make a bridge, an affectionate bridge, an attachment, an association, a relationship between the faculty and the technology. Unless the faculty members are adequately trained, adequately tuned into, thinking that, this is going to stay and this makes my job much effective, much better, there going to be an adverse effect on our entire teaching learning processes. To address the situation, educational institutes and Amity has done wonderfully well under the dynamic leadership of Professor Shukla, as she was explaining it to me. But all other institutions need to introduce continuous and rigorous digital training programs for their faculty members, and every advancement of technology would need another program. So it needs to be a continuous process, always in continuum. And government needs to support all institutions in this training process. Now, another challenge is integration of all stakeholders, human to human connect, creating emotional infrastructure and social campus life for the students. Why the brick and mortar university, despite entire digital transformation, digital process, still not replaceable? Because other than teaching and learning, they provided a lot more. They provided an affectionate social life, students connected among themselves, with their seniors, with their faculty members, faculty among themselves, with the director, with their students, with non-teaching. So there is a human to human connect. There is an emotional infrastructure. There is a vibrant social life. There is a campus life. So for that, how do we integrate that? Very quickly, yes?
Ma'am, I'm extremely sorry. I know how passionately you are actually into this now, because the challenges and the opportunities which you have mentioned, these are something which are, I am sure, which are going to take a lot of time to be debated and discussed. But since we have a session after this, and this session is going to be closed soon, so I do not want it should be
so can I finish in 1 minute?
If you can just thank you so very
so
much.
I'll just try to wrap it up in just 1 minute. Sometimes when you are speaking and you are speaking
I
at step
know.
4, so I know. So very quickly, I would just try to wrap it up in 30 seconds or more. So Ormer G. Niels, professor of educational psychology at the University of Northern Colorado, when he talks about 4 basic learning needs, that forms the basis of all major educational theories, ranging from behaviorism to social cognitivism to constructivism. He always says that there are arousals, competence, self-determination, and relatedness to any teaching learning process. Through gamification and technology, a faculty member can very successfully meet most of these needs in any online class. Technology is a huge enabler. It can be used to customize learnings to learners' level, interest, academic, social needs. Rich texts, images, videos, audios, games, being fun, excitement, collaboration, and challenges to learning. The learners, being digital natives, view online classes as edutainment, that is, education and entertainment, and continually set new learning goals for themselves. It also allows learners, the students, to learn at their own pace, revisiting all the lessons as many times as they wish before moving on to the next stage. I don't have time, so creation and maintenance of uniform, sustainable IT tools, various apps and resources would be another very important challenge and opportunity. See, accelerating the whole education digitalization and emergence of new technical digital platforms for businesses would be another challenge as well as opportunity. Sustaining, creating, not only creating, managing, sustaining the new normals for India's digital transformation would be another thing. Now, I just want to wrap up my discussion by saying university will always be the founding pillars of higher education and the necessary lens for envisioning the future. Despite the impact of COVID-19 and the havoc it may have created on the modus operandi of universities, we can't afford to underestimate and forget the great character, the resilience university have shown throughout human history. However, in these coming months, we will witness and we have witnessed strategic tactical measures, and we will continue to transform digitally and otherwise, irrespective of this pandemic's challenges, unpredictable, eroding, controlling, and comforting. An institution, creation of institution or institution building always has four important components. Those are infrastructure, intellectual, digital, and emotional. And trust me, emotional being the most important one. So create, transform digitally, and create an emotional infrastructure. So let us be digitally transformed with artificial intelligence, internet of things, machine learning, with being deep embedded human touch, human warmth, human affection, human association, human relationship, and so on and so forth. Thank you so very much. And just one sentence. I can't thank enough my professor, Dr. Balvinder Shukla, two brothers, J.S. Sodhi ji and Bansal ji, Tina Bagga ji, and I mean everyone else present here. I mean, it has been phenomenal. Thank you so very much for inviting me. A very enlightened session. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Dr. Mamta. It was wonderful listening to you. Over to you, Tanu. I am extremely sorry we had to interrupt you because the link was going to be over soon, so I didn't want it to be ended abruptly. So my apologies, but definitely we would be requesting you for some other time also. Thank you so very much, ma'am.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I request